I've cracked the code to end toddler tantrums for good with a 3-step formula designed specifically to end these tantrums. And believe me when I say this will change both your life and your toddler's. Are you sick and tired of the toddler tantrums? If you're watching this, I'm guessing you're probably all too familiar with the power struggle between you and your little one. You know, the kicking, the screaming, and the shouting no in the whiniest voice a toddler can possibly make. You're in luck. I have done the hours and hours and years of research on how to handle toddler tantrums so you don't have to. And what I've found might shock you, but let me give you a hint. If your goal is to teach your toddler effective coping skills and reduce the amount of tantrums, the answer is not to send your kid away to timeout to go think about what they did. You heard me right. I repeat, the answer is not to send your kid to timeout. Today, I'm gonna teach you this simple formula to tame those tantrums that will have you saying, I wish I knew this years ago. But first off, let's take a second to talk about why your toddler loves to drive you crazy with their tantrums. Well, you see, that's not exactly the case. So toddlers don't yet have their prefrontal cortex in their brain developed yet. And this part of your brain is essential for emotional regulation. So this is basically meaning that toddlers are not yet capable of regulating and handling really big feelings. Hence your child getting really worked up on you giving them the pink spoon and not the blue one. In simple terms, toddler tantrums are normal, and your toddler isn't trying to drive you crazy. They can't help it. But just because they're normal doesn't mean you're helpless and just have to deal with it. Good news is, there's hope and there's a better way. I've cracked the code to end toddler tantrums for good with a 3-step formula designed specifically to end these tantrums. I'm gonna walk you through my formula step by step so you know exactly how to handle tantrums, but be sure to stay tuned till the end because I have a bonus tip for you that will make this even more effective. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So what do you do when your toddler goes full-blown tantrum mode? Step 1 is to identify the emotion or behavior your child is doing and then validate their feelings. Now this does 2 things. 1, this helps teach your child emotional identification, which basically is gonna help your child identify their big feelings in the future. And number 2, by validating your child's feelings, you allow them to feel heard and understood. And that alone can help your child cope. Here's an example for you. Let's say you're at the grocery store and your child really wants candy, but you don't want to give your child candy. So you can say something along the lines of, I see you're upset about the candy. It's hard when we don't get what we want. So this is identifying their emotion of being upset, verbalizing it so they can understand, but also validating that this is something that's difficult for them. So once again, step 1 is to identify their emotion or behavior and validate their feelings. Now it's time for step number 2, which is to set a boundary. A boundary is just a way to set a limit on what is appropriate behavior and what is not. All right, I'll give you an example. So this is gonna combine step 1 and 2. In this scenario, the kiddo is hitting his little sister. I see you're trying to hit your little sister. It's okay to feel mad and it's not okay to hit people. Since you're trying to hit sister, I'm gonna have to move her away to keep her safe. So that is identifying the emotion, which is anger, validating the feeling, it's okay to feel mad, but then setting that boundary. Step number 2, set that boundary so they know it's not okay to hit. Step 3 is where parents make mistakes all the time. So I'm gonna give you an example of step number 3, and I wanna see if you catch the mistake. Stop splashing the water out of the bathtub. Stop it right now. If you don't stop it right now, I'm gonna take you out of the bathtub. Stop it. I'm gonna count to 3. 1, 2, stop it right now. Stop splashing. Do not splash. No, you're being bad. No. In case you didn't catch it, in that scenario, the mistake I was making was I wasn't following through with what I was saying. I was saying I was gonna take him out of the bathtub and then wasn't doing anything and just telling that kiddo in that scenario that they were being bad, and no, I wasn't following through with the boundary. So step 3, always follow through with the boundary that you set. The reason step 3 is so important is because when you don't follow through, your child stops taking your boundaries seriously because they think, well, they're not gonna do it anyhow. Here's the same example, but with applying the follow through part of the formula. I see you're splashing in the bathtub. It's okay to wanna play, but it's not okay to splash. If you continue to splash, I'm gonna have to take you out of the bathtub. Since you're splashing again, I'm taking you out of the bathtub. It's okay to be sad about it. We can try again tomorrow. The next 3 strategies I'm gonna go over will skyrocket the effectiveness of that 3-step formula I just taught you. We'll start with the first one. So toddlers crave autonomy, or in other words, they wanna be super independent, which is why you're probably so familiar with the phrase, I'll do it myself. So what I recommend, instead of just telling your toddler to do something, when you can, offer 2 options or 2 appropriate choices. So for instance, it's time to go to school and your child just won't get out of the door. You can give 2 choices, such as, it's time for school. Do you want to walk to the car or do you want mommy to carry you? But what do you do when your toddler won't make a choice? They won't choose between the 2 options. Well, this is when follow through comes into play. In this scenario, I would say something similar to this to the child. I see you're having a hard time choosing between walking to the car and having mommy carry you. I know it's hard to do things we don't want to do, but we do have to go to school. So since you're not choosing, mommy's gonna carry you to the car, and it's okay to feel a little sad about it. Okay, now for tip number 2, which is to add replacement behavior when possible. So with replacement behavior, it's basically telling your child what they can do instead of just saying no and what they can't do, so they know what's appropriate in replacement. For instance, if your child keeps throwing their toy car and they won't stop, and you're saying no and they won't stop, you can say something along the lines of, I see you're trying to throw your toy car. It's okay to want to play, but it is not okay to throw your toy car. If you continue to throw your toy car, I'm gonna have to take it away. And then the kid continues to throw. All right, I'm taking your toy car away because you continue to throw it. We cannot throw your toy car, but here is a ball you can throw. So you're replacing the behavior of wanting to throw something with something they actually can throw. You're replacing the toy car with a ball. Replacement behavior. Now it's time for the 3rd and final bonus tip that will have you navigating toddlerhood with confidence in no time. And tip number 3, although it may sound obvious, I promise it's not, it is to teach your child coping skills. Now, the mistake I often see parents make with this one is when the child's in full-blown meltdown mode, the parent will just say, take a deep breath. Deep breathe, take a deep breath. As you may have found this out the hard way, this typically causes kids to escalate even more. So here's what I recommend instead. Number 1 is to teach your kid coping skills when they're in a calm state. You heard me right. So when they're in full-blown meltdown mode, that is not the time to teach them new coping skills. Do it beforehand when they're in a calm state. And number 2, try using developmentally appropriate coping skills, taking a deep breath, more of an adult coping skill. Try this instead. Try making it into a game or a visual. So you can say, let's pretend we're blowing bubbles and talk about how big you can take a deep breath to blow your bubble up. What color's their bubble? Make it developmentally appropriate versus just saying, take a deep breath. Also, practicing this beforehand can be super beneficial when they're in that calm state. So then later when they're escalated and you're practicing this together, they remember it and they know how to use it. So a common question I get is, what if my kid just won't use their coping skills that I taught them when they're super mad or sad or throwing a huge tantrum? So this is what I recommend. First of all, remain calm, because if you get worked up, your child will get even more worked up. So try and take a deep breath, calm yourself down. Next, obviously encourage your child to use the coping skills you practiced beforehand when they're in that calm state, but let's say they won't and they're escalated. Try modeling the coping skill. Model yourself taking deep breaths while they're watching. Model it so they start to comprehend, okay, like when I'm mad or sad or whatever big feeling I have, like my mom is modeling this behavior, that's what I'm supposed to do. My last recommendation is to be patient and keep practicing. Coping skills take a while for your kid to really get the hang of and to really apply to their emotion. So they're learning so many things. They're learning emotional identification, they're learning how to regulate, and practicing those coping skills over and over again when they're in that calm state can later help them apply them when they're having that big tantrum. Congratulations, you made it through the end of the video. So if you want to be sure you don't miss any of the helpful parenting strategies I come out with, subscribe to my channel and like this video.